Good evening and welcome to Delving Deeper. I am Sonolala, sitting in for Ayana Carter. Joining us this evening are newly appointed chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago Postal Corporation, Mr. Michael Seals, along with acting managing director of TTPost, Mr. George Alexis. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Seals, you were recently appointed chairman of TTPost. Tell us about your plans.
Well, my plans come from what the Honorable Minister, Mr. Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, would have said. He would have challenged me and the board to look at, improving our present service as we have it now and introducing new product and services. He also pointed to what is happening as it relates to employee morale at TTPost. What I've seen so far, there's a lot of excitement as it relates to persons, coming up to me when I just made a preliminary visit of it in terms of trying to set up for our first board meeting. What I have discovered is that a lot of persons are in fact enthusiastic. I am a returning member because I was the deputy chairman on the previous board. That previous board would have served in a time led by Mr. Hakim Ahmed, who was the chairman, in one of the most difficult moments in Trinidad and Tobago. We had to treat with the whole issue of the pandemic, and at that point in time, the abnormal, challenges to our resources because of the fact that at that point of time, because of the restrictions, TTPost became the leader in the industry, more so in Trinidad and Tobago, in delivering some of the services that was rolled out by the health services and more so by the Ministry of Health. So we played a major role and some of the other things that we would have had to do. Now, in terms of what I'm looking forward to do, as the minister said, look at improving product and services. I know of some of the things that have been in train when I first got there. That is some relationships that are going to be strategic in nature. But my first port of call is to hire what they call a managing director. No offense to the gentleman sitting on my right, I have to do that because we want to kind of settle the leadership in the organization. There's also room for a delivery manager and a general manager, marketing and sales. So those things have to be done first. Right after that, I'm looking at the strategic direction of the organization, more so rolling out a strategic plan in the near future. And then thirdly, which I think is very important, and I would have mentioned it just previously, the issue of forming those strategic alliances, because I believe strongly that those alliances will in fact help to not only improve our service, but also to introduce new products and services. I would not venture to really reveal what these new strategic alliances, would be introduced, but I would say that they have of an international flavor. So a lot of persons could look forward to the dynamics of that and what it means for Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, Mr. Alexis, I want to bring you into the fold now. Is TTPost delivering on its mandate?
Yes, Sunil, thanks for the question. Yes, TTPost has a mandate to provide a level of services and postal products, related products to the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago. The standard for the Caribbean region is 85% delivery. For Trinidad and Tobago, that means delivery of mail within 4 days or less. We are actually exceeding that standard, and another standard that we have in terms of our mandate is also to provide coverage to 95% or more of the addresses in Trinidad and Tobago to receive postman service. We are actually at 96%. So in terms of meeting the mandate of the government, which is the owner of TTPost, for want of a better word, we are meeting the mandate in terms of providing a quality level of postal services to the international standard. And also we are meeting the standard for mail coverage. In terms of overall mandate for efficiency of the organization, we continue to find ways to rationalize our operations, to bring in efficiencies, to bring in technology, to ensure that the corporation meets and exceeds what customers expect at a reasonable cost. And that is the challenge for Post worldwide, maintaining the services at a reasonable cost for citizens of the respective countries that use postal services.
Now, TTPost falls under the Ministry of Public Utilities, and the line minister is always preaching about self-sufficiency. What is TTPost doing about this?
Well, one of the things that I have really focused in my mind is that simple issue of self-sufficiency. Because if we look back based on history, TTPost have been getting a lot of government subventions. And I know at times, and I can recall quite recently, our subvention was reduced. And when the experience of that subvention being reduced, it really was for TTPost to really come up to such a standard to find different ways to be creative, to create different income streams. At this point in time, as I said before, that these strategic alliances that we are now forming will now try to focus on that. Let me just by way of, giving a little hint as it turns to opening up the box to discuss how I mean by that. We presently have are being courted by two international players. They are in fact trying to court us as it relates to a standard shipping package or a standard box that we can use from a courier standpoint to ship throughout Trinidad and Tobago and also up the Caribbean as well as into international countries. The thing about that is that it is something that will do two things. It will bring a lot of revenue as well as generate a lot of foreign exchange. It is something that we are keenly looking at, but the point is that we, as an organization, TTPost, the board members and its management have to be a little careful and responsible because at the end of the day, we are still have to focus on what is government's mandate, which is really reforming the postal sector. So given that, what is interesting for me is that we have been proceeding apace as it relates to discussions with both those entities. There's one that we favor more than one, and I would not reveal that as well too, but we are almost nearing completion some of those discussions. What those discussions will lead to is an improved revenue stream, which actually will deal with the whole issue of being self-sufficient and not to really heavily rely on government subvention. There are some other areas we have been exploring, and TTPost have, in fact, was in those areas as it relates to the financial sector, where we look at something as, for example, what MoneyGram is to us, what is Western Union to us. We, in fact, have from the support from the legislative framework, are able to conduct those type of services, and it's something that we will have to discuss, and I have to discuss with management as to how feasible it is. I know there was some discussion previously. I would like to renew the discussions because at the end of the day, it is about Trinidad and Tobago, it's about the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and once we can really improve that self-sufficiency, it redounds to the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. And more importantly, why I'm so interested and keen about it is that the international players will in fact bring much needed foreign exchange to the country. Sometimes, persons always get this feeling that because you have international giants, yes, caught in Trinidad and Tobago, that we are not able to hold our own. But I'm quite certain because of the management at TTPost, we are secure as a leader, not only in the industry, but up the region as well. And I take some solace in that and say to those who may be some naysayers, because we do have some naysayers, we are going to get it right.
When we look at this potential partnership, how is this going to benefit the average Joe in Trinidad and Tobago? Because the public is always going to say, how does this going to benefit me?
Well, if I am to speak hypothetically, without, as I say, letting the cat out of the bag, so to speak, what we can see is we presently in a partnership with DHL as it relates to our courier service. But when you look at looking at a standard box, and that standard box was really to target small and medium enterprises and micro, small and medium enterprises as well. And it's something that the CARICOM was actively looking at. It really brings a benefit at us being the hub for those type of packages and helping micro businesses as well as small business try to get their product not only up the region but to enter international markets. So it helps in that way to develop some of those small businesses. But more importantly is that because we have that standard feature, it also encourages the development of those type of businesses and really helps the average Trinidad and Tobagonian being able to actually also be a part of accessing that standard box. They may wish to send something to a relative or a friend abroad. The cost will be astronomically lower than the traditional courier service that has been offered at the present time.
With the advent of technology in the past 2 decades or so, less people are relying on TTPost and traditional mail, if you want to call it that. What is TTPost doing to stem this revenue stream that would have generally been used for mail and delivery and so on?
I think I would just defer that question to Mr. Alexis, and I would add to it after.
Yeah, what I can say is it's not only in Trinidad and Tobago, worldwide. Posts across the region, across the world, face the fact that the traditional sources of income are on the decline. No longer is letter mail the main source of income. So TTPost, just like others in the region, others all over the world, would have sought to diversify its product portfolio, diversify its service offering, partner with entities, form strategic partnerships, restructure its organization so that it can remain relevant and find ways to become relevant in other areas. Our courier services, our online shopping platform, things like that are areas where TTPost has found opportunity to supplement income that would have been lost over time due to mail declines. Mail continues to decline, traditional mail, but there are other opportunities for TTPost. We also have the largest physical footprint in the country in terms of building, plant, and infrastructure. And we're expecting to see some exciting things happening with our physical network in the coming months, maybe in the next 12 months, in terms of utilizing and maximizing that physical footprint that we have, not only to benefit TTPost, but it will benefit the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago by providing that network for access to different government services, access to TTPost's network to help grow businesses as well. So TTPost is changing its model to look at not only mail. Mail is, as you said, on the decline, but really transforming our business to find new opportunities, new ways to be relevant, to grow and remain viable.
How well is the courier service doing? Because I know for a fact that a lot of small businesses, in fact, use the courier service. How well is that doing so far?
Our estimation, based on market research, is that for the local courier service, meaning courier within Trinidad and Tobago, we would say that we have about 85 to 90% of the market. So I think we're doing pretty well. Having started when I joined TTPost in '99 with 10 couriers, we now upward of 50 couriers in Trinidad and Tobago. And to have and hold on to 85 to 90% of the business out there, I think we're doing pretty well. In terms of the international courier service for packages leaving Trinidad, we are partnered with one of the top in the world, and we have a very good relationship with DHL, and it continues to provide service to our customers to the extent that when we partnered with DHL, the phone calls in our customer service department went from 50 to 60 calls every day to literally zero. You can hear crickets in the customer service department because the partnership is working so well with DHL that we have literally zero complaints in terms of packages leaving the country using the Homex international service.
Now, Mr. Seals, I understand that TTPost was faced with a cyber attack in the past few months. Do you care to confirm or expand on this?
Well, as I say, I would say rumors have it, but one of the things that we have recognized from TTPost and our treatment with the issue, and that fell directly in my garden because one of the committees I chaired then, which was the security committee, would have had the responsibility of, how to say, redesigning how TTPost responds to some of those type of challenges. We would only say that it originated from internal issues, and being that it had happened from internal issues, we looked at how vulnerable our whole platform and networks were to any potential cyber attack, whether now or in the future. So we take some action that allowed us the flexibility of being able to protect ourselves, but at the same time using some local expertise to redesign our network and our infrastructure as it relates to any potential cyber attack. And I'm trying to stay away from saying much more because so far we have been successful as it relates to what we have done. So if I could put it in a nutshell, there was an attempt, and I would categorize it as it is, as an attempt to attack our network. But that was quickly shut down. I believe, if I could remember correctly, and I stand to be corrected, it took all of 9 hours for us to pinpoint the source of the issue, shut down the source of the issue, and restart the Postal Corporation in the quickest turnaround time. We have been keenly looking at it, and we had to really consider whether some of the services that we were enjoying internally, whether we had to really take those services and transfer those issues to external agencies to provide the type and level of support. This is a specialist area, and one of the things the board and the management has to recognize that sometimes you may not have the expertise within, but we have the expertise without, and more so in Trinidad and Tobago, and we must use that expertise to protect us from any future or potential cyber attack.
As we approach the end of the financial year, was TTPost able to boost its profits for fiscal 2022-2023?
Well, I know from my little experience, I would just say this. TTPost has been doing well, particularly in the area of the courier department. But I think it's more appropriate. There was a gap in terms of my absence from TTPost, so I would defer that question to the managing director acting, so that he could give you really a full picture as to how TTPost is doing financially, especially when it comes to profits.
What I could say is, financially, coming out of the COVID period, we saw a dip in revenue. We saw a spike because with COVID, TTPost saw growth in use with a lot of businesses shutting down. So in terms of the performance for this financial year, I would say we are on target to break even and maybe show a small profit. We still have 2 months left in the financial year to do our final assessments, but we are hopeful that the coming year will be even more robust for our bottom line. Given we had to make some adjustments with the realignment of the market to post-pandemic and everybody returning to normal, it did pose a little bit of a challenge for us to meet the type of targets we set. But in terms of profitability, I would say that we're on target by the end of this financial year to show a small growth in performance.
How do you intend to bring about a greater efficiency at the corporation?
That is coming in this financial year as well, as we're looking, as our chairman said, to developing a strategic plan for the organization that will see, looking at the next 5 to 10 years, looking at best practices worldwide, looking at where posts are going and how do you remain relevant, how do you right-size your network, how do you build your network to meet the needs of your citizens. Each country has different needs, different requirements. The strategic plan exercise that we're venturing on in the coming months will see TTPost charting its future for the next 5 to 10 years to ensure that it provides the level of service, the types of products, the quality of payback to the government that is expected of an entity such as TTPost.
Mr. Alexis, we talk about digitalization, and it's happening all over the world, including here in Trinidad. Where is TTPost when it comes to incorporating technology into the corporation?
We are at the forefront in terms of things relevant to our industry, track and trace type technology. We've developed a track and trace system for our local courier service. We are in partnership, like I said, with DHL. The Universal Postal Union has a tracking service for international mail called IPS.post. TTPost is at the forefront of that. We are now working with several postal agencies on electronic advanced data to provide information on packages leaving Trinidad, for example, to the US, so their customs and post will know what is coming before, and vice versa. So packages coming into Trinidad and Tobago, we will have a declaration before those packages arrive into Trinidad and Tobago, so that customs would be aware of what they would want to search, what they would need to check. So all of those technologies already exist in TTPost. In terms of scanning and x-ray machines, we already have scanning and x-ray machines at TTPost. We're in the process of acquiring additional scanning and x-ray machines. We expect within the next 12 months to be audited by the Universal Postal Union to receive our certification. It's called S58, S59 certification. It's a security certification. I believe only 2 countries in the Caribbean are certified presently. TTPost is on track to put all the infrastructure in place within the next 12 months so that we can be certified as safe for mail in transit and also mail into and out of Trinidad and Tobago. So in terms of technology, we continue to invest. We are looking at working with government agencies to upgrade our human resource or financial management systems. All of these things are happening at TTPost as we speak, so it is very exciting times in terms of how we're moving the corporation forward and government investment in TTPost to ensure that it remains viable and provides quality service to the country.
Do we already have that technology in Trinidad and Tobago where persons can log on and track their delivery package and so on?
Yes. Yes, our website has that. If you go to ttpost.net, it has the capability to track your local packages as well as your international packages.
What are some of the challenges faced at the corporation?
It's a good one. Challenges, I would say, at TTPost remain centered on, I would say, part of it. I could talk to you to a couple of challenges. One would be we have an aging workforce. We do have an aging workforce, and we're looking to remedy that in the coming months and years. We also have challenges in terms of equipment, meaning rolling stock, vehicles, scooters, that sort of thing. So we are looking at upgrading. We would have received funding for new scooters. So really it's the tools of the trade has always been one of the challenges in any postal organization because vehicles wear down over time. They break down, they age. And the investment in maintenance and investment in replacement continues to be a challenge for an organization in an industry where revenues are declining. But we are working to improve the efficiency of the equipment that we have and investing in new equipment to meet those challenges and ensure that we maintain the service that we offer.
Mr. Seals, talk to me about some of the successes of TTPost.
Well, the successes I could talk about in the last 2 years. One of the things that we have recognized is that TTPost would have, steadied the ship during one of the most challenging times. Because I know sometimes the public sometimes forget that we just came through a pandemic. And not only that we came through a pandemic, we had the times when the TTPost staff, would have been inundated with those who would have contracted COVID, but yet still we had to maintain the level of service that the public deserve. And TTPost would have been able to, through its management, to really take on that responsibility to really deliver. But some of the things that I can say in terms of its stride is that, and must not go unnoticed, is that traditional mail is declining, but yet still there's a growth in our courier department. And as was said before by the managing director acting, is that we would have started off with 10 couriers, now we are at 50. And more so, we are seen, as we sometimes like to look at it, as one of the greatest revenue earners for the corporation. And really looking at it in terms of, when I say that, if you look back and look at the fact that mail is declining and look at the industry worldwide and also locally, is that decline in revenue would have kind of hamstrung us. But one of the things that he just said is that we are making a profit. We may not just break even, we may actually have a slight profit, and that is something that Trinidad and Tobago should applaud. When you see the postman, tell them thanks, you understand, because we are trying our best, given what we try to do based on innovation and creation, and creativity, sorry. The other part is also as well too, is that a lot of some of the control structures that have been implemented in the last 2 years would have borne fruit. And it's borne fruit to the extent that there's a level of efficiency in the organization that has come about as a result of what we have introduced. We had a major problem when it came to some persons thinking that TTPost is a soft target as it relates to the transshipment of drugs. That has been considerably curtailed because there was, in fact, one particular strategy that really removed the vulnerability, not only to the TTPost corporation itself, but also the franchise, what we control. So those are some of the takeaways for me, because you have to control your corporate image, and that was destroying our corporate image. And I look forward to the fact that, we will do better in the next fiscal because of the fact some of the things we intend to do to make TTPost more visible, and that we now look at really improving that bottom line, and that's the most important point for us.
Mr. Alexis, I know you talked about there being an aged workforce. but at this point in time, does TTPost have enough resources available?
To the extent that we're meeting our delivery standard, which is the 85% mail delivered within the day plus 4, I would say yes, but at the end of the day, over time, people do retire, get promoted, find new opportunities. So the corporation, with the blessings of the previous board, which Mr. Seal served on, has given us a directive to look at our manpower resources to ensure that we maintain the level of coverage. And a lot of people not clear on how Post operates. It's really about coverage. If you have a community that requires 5 postmen to serve it, you have to have the 5 postmen to serve it. Whether it's 10 letters or 100 letters, it's really about ensuring that the coverage remains so that mail that is for that district, that community, that neighborhood gets delivered. So we do have the blessings of our board to look at ensuring that the network remains at the level it needs to provide the optimal service for the citizens.
What can we look forward to in the upcoming fiscal year?
Well, in the upcoming fiscal, we have, and I make it very blunt in terms of what I have been mandated to do by the Honorable Minister. We are looking at embarking on a program of restoring some of our legacy buildings. And if you look at the historical relevance of some of those buildings, it is important for us to really continue to take care of our heritage. That is a major step for us as it relates to this new fiscal. Yes, looking back and looking forward, we need to also know how we really look at our realignment of the organization, given that traditional post is no longer a viable option. But we also know we need to understand that there are some entities, regardless of their nature, need the traditional post. What we are trying to do is to make it as dynamic as possible. There are some argument from different quarters that we should in fact increase postage in terms of trying to reduce some of our costs through that method. But I think that is something that we cannot put on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. What we have to do and what we are going to do as it relates to this new fiscal and what we are going to really focus on is really, in the early stages, really moving strategically. And those strategic alliances through the United Postal Union and the Caribbean Postal Union already is bringing some benefits. And I was jokingly speaking with the managing director as we were coming up the road as to how we look at really improving the issue of reducing government's costs. And sometimes we don't understand the challenges in that, but we have had commitment, particularly by those 2 particular unions, that they are willing to partner with us. And if we are able to successfully negotiate good terms, what will happen is that that cost can be rerouted for something more meaningful for the country. Whether the government decides to give us it to really look at other issues to treat with, we will welcome that. But that is something that both the managing director and I would have spoken about, and something that I would discuss fully with the board when we do meet. Because we have to look at there are persons in the community as well as internationally who are civic-minded and who want to play a part in Trinidad and Tobago's growth, and more so the postal sector growth. And we need to tap into that in order for us to make it better for Trinidad and Tobago.
How bad has been that drop-off from the traditional mail in terms of the revenue? Because we even see banks not sending bank statements, telecommunications provider not sending the monthly bills. How bad has it been?
But let me just say this way, to put it into context, because I know the managing director would also add to this, but I would just say this way. When I sat on the operations committee, which I also chaired, on the past board, what we recognized is that there was a 7% gap in terms of what happened in the traditional mail in terms of the use of its workforce. So that 7% gap was excess capacity. What do we do with that 7% gap as it relates to finding some other way to redirect the workforce so that we could get something, or at least because people are being paid, you understand, and then you have that gap, that is really a problem. And I say that because one of the issues were we had a number of agencies with for example, the banks would send bulk mail, and that kept us afloat. And some of them would have been withdrawing the services because of the introduction of email and the type of new services they were offering. So because of that, what we had to do is look at what do we do with this excess capacity, these postmen who may be sitting idle, that's 7%. We have to find a way to treat with that gap, because what that does is it also keeps costs at a steady increase. But the problem is that revenue will decline because you do not have that person utilizing the services. And just forgive me for explaining it in the most simplest way, because people need to understand what is happening. So as we are saying, we have to find something with that excess capacity, because that was 7% then. I cannot say what it is now, and that was a few months ago for me. And for me to understand, okay, what do we do with that now? Because we can't certainly have the postman sitting idly, getting paid, and we don't have use for him. That is a problem. And that's something that we need to really think about very seriously. I know management would have been tussling with it over the time that we would have been absent as a board or didn't have a board, and something that I know we have to look at immediately when this board is installed. So I think Mr. Alexis, the managing director, may speak more on the issue.
If you want raw numbers, I can tell you that when I came back into the postal industry in 2015, and now in 2023, traditional mail volumes have declined by about 60%. Roughly 60% from 2015 to 2023. So if you had 100 letters a day on a particular walk, you're now talking about 30 to 40 letters a day on the same walk. But the mechanic speaks to the fact that I still need that postman to do the walk. Because if the first house on the walk and the last house on the walk has to get letters, I still need to have the resource to deliver those letters. And that's not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. COVID saw mail volumes in New Zealand drop during the COVID pandemic by 30%. Normal decline since 2009 to now is 3 to 5% year on year. COVID saw us drop by about 25%. New Zealand 30%, Canada 17, 18%. It's worldwide. Everything is shifting to electronic. You get everything on your phone. So the banks, the utilities, etc. There's one bank that even charges customers who want to get a physical statement in the mail. So they pay TTPost $1 and they charge the customers $7 to get a statement in the mail. So it really is a dramatic decline, and it speaks to posts all over the world having to deal with that reality and find ways to adjust. Last week I got an email from a colleague in New Zealand. They're going to lay off 700 staff again in New Zealand Post. They've cut from 10,000 staff, they're now down to about 6,000 staff in the last 7 years. It's a dynamic industry, and it's changing and evolving. Thankfully, TTPost is not going down that road. We have opportunities to find ways to maximize the service we do and bring in additional and optional revenue streams so that our network remains relevant and provides different levels of service to the population of Trinidad and Tobago.
Based on what you said, how long do you think it's going to take TTPost to really become self-sustainable?
That's a nice question, and I think I would just say we are there. But there needs to be a level of maturity, and I think that one of the things that the employees have to embrace is this. The fact is that we have to not only reinvent ourselves, the circumstances and the dynamics of the industry is forcing us to pivot, as we speak, as on a dime, right? But let me say on a quarter, right? So that might be much more sufficient for the listening public. And why I say we have to shift, the fact is because we were in fact heavily invested, trained, and really our output had to do with traditional mail. As I said before, one of the things we need to look at is that standard size box and delivery of that box, because the postal person must now be retooled in such a way that we could accommodate that flat rate box, we could accommodate that type of service. Because if you look at some industries now, for example, most of the businesses, they are offering almost free shipping to your door, right? And when I say free shipping to your door, we're talking about looking at any service that they are offering, that they are bringing it to your door, any product they are bringing it to your door, where that should be the responsibility of TTPost. We should be included in the last mile. But now most businesses try to incorporate in their course that delivery type feature so that you get the type of service. They actually have recollections where if you have a problem with a product, they come and recollect it. But we are saying to them now, that flat rate box would now really help your business to the extent that you may not have to put out that type of cost or pass on that cost to the customer. We can in fact provide that service to you at a much smaller cost because of economies of scale. But the point is that we have to be mature, and mature to the extent that our employees embrace that type of new initiative, the direction that we are going in, because it's going to be important in the future, not only for our survival, but also for what may happen next as it relates to some of the challenges we will in fact face. No matter what, we know that technology is growing at a pace. We have to take into account that technology has provided avenues for small startups, and the small startups will actually replicating some of the services that we as TTPost are in fact providing. So they need to really think hard as to what they should and what they should not do, and whether they should embrace the direction that we are now want to go in.
Mr. Seals, final thoughts? I'll give you the first word.
Well, my final thoughts is that I am coming into TTPost at one of the most dynamic times of the existence of the corporation. In the previous incarnation, I know we would have had the different challenges, particularly when it came to COVID and how we really do things. We know we would not have been able to meet as a board physically, but this is something that has changed because COVID is behind us. And why I say it is going to be important is because we have a dynamic group of persons who are now at the helm of the board, who I think come with some of the best skills that I have seen. And there's a lot of youthful exuberance and energy that they are displaying that I am going to be happy to work with. They are going to be able to be very creative with me and allow them to think in such a way that we bring something different, a breath of fresh air into TTPost, and that's what I am looking forward to. I mean, we have to deal with the issues of the decline in mail, or the issues of the struggle with the profits as well as subvention. But I think when you have people who are willing and are able to really put their heads together, and with management, I don't think anything is possible. Impossible, I should say. I think it's more possible than anything, and I look forward to that in the near future.
Mr. Alexis, final thoughts?
For me, I'm just happy to serve this organization, happy to see the opportunities that I see on the horizon, very near horizon actually. Having had the good fortune to work with some of the Caribbean and North American and other postal operators within the last 6 to 8 months, and seeing the opportunities that present itself for TTPost in the coming weeks, months, I am seeing bright things ahead for the corporation. I am excited to work with this new board. I'm seeing some as Chairman Seal said, some energized people on our board, and I see a new vision and a new hope for TTPost. And for me, the opportunity to act as managing director has been tremendous. And what I look forward to is taking TTPost in a different direction, where it's not just about mail, where TTPost becomes entrenched as part of the lives of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to add value to the lives of the citizens of this country. And that is what I think TTPost is going to be about. And I would ask everyone to stay tuned.
And that's our show, Mr. Seals and Mr. Alexis. Thanks very much for joining us on this week's episode of Delving Deeper. It has been very informative, and I'm sure we've learned quite a lot on TTPost.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Join us at the same time next week for another episode of Delving Deeper. I am Sonolala, and on behalf of the entire crew, have a great night.